Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I am Steven Conway. With me, once again, is Jeremy Finestone. We are contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. Jeremy, it's good to see you again. I was off last week. I missed you.
Parts unknown. I know where you are now. You're right in front of me.
Exactly.
I hope that your vacation was fantastic.
It was.
We thought going into it that this was going to be a relatively easy week for you to take away from because, we'd have this crossover show. It'd be one and done and, just kind of move on. And we can just kind of, ease right into it next week and have no problem whatsoever. Plenty of time for you to catch up from where you were at, doing what you were doing, to watch everything. Just a show or two wouldn't be too bad. Ha! We were.
Gets us every time, doesn't it?
Fools we were.
First of all, I do want to say thank you very much to Justin Nipper for filling in for me last week. Very much appreciate his appearance here. And he was the perfect guest to have going into Wrestle Kingdom Night 2 in Yokohama, considering the crossover event with Noah. He knows so much about Noah. It was great to have his expertise on that. So very much big thanks to Justin for that.
I was super happy that he was just willing to pick up the flame and carry it for us in our time of need.
Yeah, it was great. It's always good to have that. It's like Scott Edwards with the Stardom stuff. I really, one of the great things about Fight Game Media is we have a show or an expert that handles just about every facet of MMA, boxing, pro wrestling. So we can do these things where we can help each other out, so to speak, when these events come up. And I did come back from this vacation and I knew that I had the Yokohama show to watch. And then I heard that, there things happened. And so I had to catch up on that. And I had to watch the two Road to shows, the one in Nagoya, the one at Korakuen Hall. So not only did I get to go on this wonderful vacation to the Caribbean, but I got to come back and then just marathon watch New Japan Pro Wrestling. So that's a pretty decent way to spend a week and a few days right there. I just loaded up on caffeine and got ready for this show. So, there's a lot to go into, my goodness. And it seems like we are set up for some really interesting stuff in the next month. And a lot of it came into, we expected two things. We expected two things out of Wrestle Kingdom Night 2, Jeremy. We expected there to be a little bit of news and some really fun matches. I think this show certainly over-delivered on the news aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think it also delivered completely in the entertainment aspect of it. I was watching this show straight up in the middle of the night, and I was having a blast with it. I thought it was really terrific execution. I think there were people from Noah that really showed up. I think the guys from New Japan worked very hard. Entertaining night of wrestling.
Honestly, I got to give Justin Nipper a lot of credit. When we were talking about the Kiyomiya Okada tag match that was coming in, he was talking about the rivalry between those two and how it was building and how it was growing, and there was dissatisfaction and an underlying sentiment of jealousy, all these things, and that he was honestly calling a prediction of like a major blow-off match 3 years from now. Neither of us were expecting the match to be booked for next month in result of what happened at this show. But he immediately let me know in the middle of the night what had happened. There was no way I was getting out of watching the show spoiler free. I don't know if you managed to because of where you were and what you had going on, but nope. there was no chance, and I knew everything that was going in, and I was still unbelievably entertained with this show. And I thought, given what my expectations were going into it and what I got out of it, it completely outkicked its coverage. And everybody showed up. All the matches were entertaining. Even the shows that I watched, I needed to watch one show, which was the 1-1 show, before this card to know who everybody was. And so I give Noah a lot of credit for putting out a card in which you were eminently familiar just by watching the last big show that they had of who everybody was, what their motivation was, and why they're who they're with. So there was a lot of education for dummies to get forth and understand the show. And Noah and New Japan made it very easy for everybody to watch this show, even if you were like a first-time Noah watcher, which basically I was. And I was really impressed with that.
And I will tell you how I found out about it. I took a cruise. That was my vacation there. I took a little Caribbean cruise. And I intentionally avoid they have the packages that you can buy that'll give you internet access. And I intentionally avoid that. The whole point of one of these things is to tune out and just not have to do with anything, not to do with work, not to do with social media. I'm offline for a week and it relaxes me tremendously. So we get back to the port and I turn on the internet again. And I kind of brace myself to see just how many notifications and emails I have and whatnot. But I start looking through things and so many things are about this kick to the head. And I'm just like, okay, do I want to look? I gotta look. So I hit the button and I see it. And I had not, I was in the car with other people. I had the sound turned off. The very first thing I thought of was Akira Maeda and Riki Choshu. I said, oh, they did that angle. And then I watched the rest of it and I saw this side of Kazuchika Okada that I really hadn't seen much of before. And I just thought, this is wonderful because this was a match that was just kind of there and on the card. And I mean, it's Okada and Togi Makabe, and all due respect to Makabe, but he's not figured in. And you just think, well, what is this thing doing here exactly? We're just going to see a few spots between Okada and the GHC champion here. And that's really all we're doing. And it was just kind of this little sleeper cell of a match laying there. And I just thought, well, something should, I was just surprised that the two champions weren't in a more prominent spot, but they had an idea for that to put them in perhaps the most prominent spot of the whole night right there. So kudos to everybody. And why don't we just talk about that first, Jeremy? This is by far the headline. And then we'll kind of work our way through the rest of the card. So it was Kaito Kiyomiya, who is a terrific wrestler. And there you have it. He is the GHC champion for Noah. So he's their top guy. And he's on one side of the ring with this guy, Yoshiki Inamura, who was basically a prop in this match, as was Togi Makabe. They were, again, this match was a delivery system for the angle. That's all this really was. In fact, I think it only went about 6 minutes and 35 seconds, and probably 2 minutes of that was the brawl between Okada and Kiyomiya.
Like 4 minutes.
Yeah, it was very quick. So
it was like, there was a lot of printing at the beginning. Inamura and Okada got in there for a few minutes. Okada got him down into the chin lock, and Kiyomiya just had it. Like, he wanted to face off with them. He was pissed at disrespect, and he just started kicking him in the back, just wailing on him, and then he turned around and did the Maeda kick, and we were off to the races. The commentary was fantastic. Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton, they were fantastic. What else do you have to say about this? Well, the comparisons to historical aspect.
Well, I thought it was fascinating that the angle actually started at the very beginning of the match. So it started with Kiyomiya wanting to square off against Okada to begin the match, and Okada just dismissing him. Okada was kind of a real jerk at the beginning of this match, and
he's the heel.
He played this. Well, Okada isn't though, but he is in this, and he wasn't kind of in this. He was very arrogant about the whole thing. He just kind of dismissed Kiyomiya like, you're beneath me. I see the little trinket around your waist. It's not the IWGP World Heavyweight title. Therefore, it is unworthy of me. And I'm going to just step out of the ring and let Makabe do this thing. And just dismissive as hell. So at first, you're just like starting to sympathize with Kiyomiya a little bit. And as the match went on, you could just see Kiyomiya, who's this guy, I can't say enough about this guy's performance, just sitting there stewing. You could almost see the little storm cloud building above his head if it were a cartoon. I mean, he was just getting pissed. Steam coming out of his ears. And like I said, they did the Akira Maeda thing. Now, Akira Maeda, Riki Choshu, what's that if you haven't watched it before? This was one of those incidences when wrestling became real. Now, what we saw in Yokohama was a worked version of it. The Riki Choshu Akira Maeda thing was not a work.
Right. That's a big distinction right there.
That's an important distinction. Very important. Again, tag team match. I believe it was a Korakuen Hall. No quote me on that. It's been a minute. I've slept since I looked that up last. And Riki Choshu had the Scorpion, the sharpshooter, whichever one you want to call it. on a guy, and Akira Maeda was on the opposite team. Now, Maeda was kind of a free spirit, if you will, a bit of a rebel. He was not very he didn't submit to authority very well. Akira did not play well with others. Akira Maeda didn't, and Choshu was part of the office. So they had some sort of disagreement. I don't know if that's ever been totally revealed as to what that disagreement was, but Maeda was pissed at Choshu. So Choshu is exposed. If you think about it, when you get a sharpshooter on or a scorpion, you're exposed. Both of your hands are tied up with the guy's legs. So Maeda came in, broke it up, left. Just basic, like normal, and did it a couple of times. And then the next time he came in, Maeda, who was MMA trained and part of the original UWFI, after this is a tough guy, not somebody you would want to mess with, just kicked Riki Choshu in the face, blew his face up, broke his orbital bone. And the match just came apart after that. It did not look like what we saw with Kiyomiya and Okada, where they were brawling around ringside. This is one where everybody in the match realized something had gone very, very wrong and kept the two of them apart. Maeda ended up being out of New Japan. I don't think he ever came back. And he ended up in UWFI, which was a company based around worked matches that were worked to look like MMA matches. We saw a very poor version of that with Shingo Takagi and Great O-Khan that we're going to talk about later. But UWFI's whole thing was fooling people into thinking, okay, pro wrestling is wrestling over there. That's the fake stuff. This is what it would be. This is what it would look like if they fought for real under pro wrestling rules. That was the idea of UWFI. Right. And Maeda was one of the better guys at working that style, but he wasn't working against Ricky. So they flashed back to that and did this whole thing where Okada got kicked in the face. And Okada showed a side. You don't see Okada lose his cool. Even when Okada, the character, is angry at Jay White, or he's angry at Naito, or he's angry at anybody else, he plays it kind of chill. Like he's still a dangerous guy. He's the best wrestler in the world, all that stuff. But to see him just pissed and throwing things around and beating on this guy and throwing him into the announce table and throwing equipment on him, and then Kiyomiya gave back as good as he got with that kick to the head and some of the punches. This was so effective that these two guys lost their temper with each other, that we have seen a little bit of ugliness even on social media toward Kiyomiya. I mean, when you saw this, I know that you probably realized it was a work immediately. Did you expect it to get the kind of reaction it's gotten?
I wasn't sure, but it felt different. When like there's a vibe about something and you're just like, okay, they've got something here when you're watching it that just it catalyzes into like a feeling, like you connect with it emotionally in a way that it's not just a typical match. And, you can call it lightning in a bottle. You can call it whatever you want, but you know it when you see it. And I felt like I knew it when I saw it, but I wasn't sure how many people were going to see it. Was really the key thing. Was it going to spread virally enough that that Wrestle Kingdom and the stuff that happened with Omega and Ospreay, that New Japan was enough on the radar to catalyze a larger awareness of what had happened? Yeah, it clearly did. And so I think that at least for the next month, there'll be some keen interest, at least, of what's going on here, there, everywhere. I think people have caught wise that it's not actually a real fight, but at least in Japan, they haven't. And in light of some recent stuff in the past with the way they treated wrestlers on social media, be cautious, but I do believe that these two wrestlers are probably eminently prepared for what's ahead of them in terms of this angle.
I think so too. One of the things that noted, the reaction got ugly enough toward Kiyomiya online that Satoshi Kojima, who's of course a New Japan legend, right, and also one half of the Noah tag team champions, the GHC champions with Segura, called for a bit of calm online. Didn't quite break character, but towed the line a little bit, and asked everybody to keep their wits about them, because I guess Kiyomiya was getting some things like you should go die and stuff like really awful stuff. And we saw now Kiyomiya is a different person than Hana Kimura, who was the Stardom wrestler who ran into some real ugly, hateful stuff based off of an appearance on a Japanese reality show called Terrace House. That unfortunately she was, even though she was a heel, she was a Waito Tai with Stardom. Even as a heel, she was unprepared, apparently, for just how ugly the internet can be right there. I don't know where Kiyomiya's head is on that. Hopefully he hopefully he's, my hope is that he's sitting back kind of smirking, just thinking, I got him good, but it was enough that of a guy that's been around this business for 30 years called for calm online. So whatever they did struck quite a nerve with a number of people there, Jeremy. And I think once this match finally happens, and it will happen, of course, we'll get into that a little bit. Okada is playing the arrogant, cool guy saying, I'm not going to make this guy famous. This is still beneath me. They announced this match, but they didn't ask me. I'm not going.
A lot of negging.
Of course he's going to go. But, there will be twists and turns toward that as that builds. But I think once this thing gets in the ring, there's going to be a buzz in that building that's unlike anything we usually get.
I honestly, just now at this moment, I wondered, is Kiyomiya going to show up in San Jose just to fuck with Okada on the 18th because their match is on the 21st? Like, this is the level of cooperation with Noah that they've got going on right now. That is, like, I'm not ruling anything out. Like, I'm just not.
No, I'm certainly not ruling out the idea of Kiyomiya showing up somewhere and goading Okada, or perhaps even the other way around. It could be a thing where Okada's playing it cool, but he's the snake in the grass and he's going to strike it sometime. Could be something as that. It could be something as simple as he's pushed through words in backstage comments into it. We don't know, but I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye.
They set the groundwork with Kenoh and Naito, the disc for that, the Congo and LIJ. They'll show up at other promotions. Like, there are things that are no longer off limits, and the cooperation is there. And as such, you want that reaction from the fans where they're rabid and they're into the angle. Is it appropriate that they're issuing death threats for people for besmirching the great name of Okada? Absolutely not. But if, there's a part of these promotions that are somewhat excited that they have fans passionate for this angle, and they just need to temper how far in extreme that they went. But they've tapped into something, and I don't think that they are in completely the wrong direction on it. They probably just overkicked their shot.
Well, I mean, again, if Kiyomiya is okay with all this, if he is, then this is gold.
This is what I'm saying. It's like, this is the objective. If you want people to want to watch one guy or the other get their ass kicked. And in a month, you're going to find out if this goes to a time limit draw or a no contest. I kind of think time limit draw.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's a 30-minute match or not. But these two going 30 minutes without either one giving up any ground sounds incredibly in the direction of you need to respect me now.
It sounds very doable, that 30-minute draw, especially if neither title is on the line, which is what the original stipulation is, that the belts are not on the line. It does not have to be a 1-hour match. So with that in mind, they could do a 30-minute thing and then do the draw. So that would be a way to do it. And, we'll see where it ends up going. I don't see it going any longer than 30 on a show where they're not really the main event either. So that's another point.
I will tell you this. I don't think this is the last time these two have a singles match.
Oh, no. This is going to go on.
This is the beginning. This is not the end.
It's funny because you and I sat here a few weeks ago talking about how Okada has now won this title, but we weren't totally sure what his big rival was. We did not know that we just needed to look to another promotion to find that top rival.
Why not? Why don't we just look at another promotion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a different era.
Introduce that factor that's commonly associated with how wrestling promotions work. Sure, why not? That was immediately my first thought.
Yeah, it was a nice. This is a pleasant surprise. I'm into this.
Yes.
So
I'm enjoying it a
go ahead.
lot. I'm just enjoying it a lot. This is energized Okada for me personally. My prediction was that this year Okada was going to run through the New Japan roster until he faces Ospreay next year, because they really haven't done enough to elevate enough people on the roster to be legitimate contenders on a day-to-day basis with Okada. He's like a tier above everybody else. So the whole goal is to find that one person that exceeds the tier, kind of like a Roman Reigns thing, rather than, just same old with Okada. So doing this is a very strong refresher. And I think it's kind of curious that he's a bit heelish about this. He's the high school rival that you kind of don't like. The kind of being the shittier of the two high school rivalry teams, the quarterback. So there are many directions. It's very early on, but there are curious choices being made that actually might be kind of deliberate.
Yeah, and the other thing what's interesting is you can still play home team. If you're a New Japan fan, you can absolutely root for Okada because Kiyomiya was clearly in the wrong for kicking him in the face the way he did, right? You can always play it up like, well, yeah, maybe Okada was being a bit of a jerk, but good grief, he made an unsafe kick. It was an unprofessional moment in a professional wrestling match. So you could play it up that way. That Kiyomiya is just a little baby about it, that type of thing. So if you want to make Kiyomiya the heel in this, you can do it because of the cheap shot to the head. If you want to make Okada, if you're a Noah guy and you want to make Okada the heel, you can go, that little snot, who is he? So there's all kinds of ways to go. And it helped this card, Jeremy, because I got to say, this was only a mild success as a draw. Only 5,533 people in the building. 8,000 showed up to the same building the next night for the Great Muto retirement match. So this did not have the same juice. Now Muto is a different beast there and a draw on his own. But I would have qualified this event as being only a mild success as far as drawing fans. But now it feels like both companies have a good bit of steam coming off of it.
So check this out. The New Japan show in San Jose sold out. Now the Capital Collision show in April, I believe in Philadelphia, is almost nearly sold out as a result of lessons learned about what these companies are willing to put out on a card and reward you for showing up to these shows and coming to these shows. That next show on 2/21, very curious how well the ticket sales are going to do on that one with Muta and the singles matches, because there was a lot on this card to like, but there wasn't a lot on this card to compel you, if that makes any sense. Now you've been given these angles that you're compelled. Like, am I going to miss out on something knowing that this card is happening? And they've done all these things, and I didn't think it was a big deal at the time, but now that I watch it, I kind of wish I had gone. Is that going to make you want to go to the next couple of cards instead? Lesson learned. I kind of have that feeling sometimes, so I would not be shocked if it just kind of catalyzes people into wanting to go to these next ones because they kind of missed out on this one.
And we will be looking forward to those shows. And now I think we should probably talk about the other matches, because there were other matches, Jeremy.
There were other matches.
And there were some pretty enjoyable ones. So we're going to run down this card. And let's do that now. So it started off with a couple of early matches. They were kind of pre-show matches, but they were enjoyable. We had the young boys from Noah, that is Taishi Ozawa and Yasutaka Yano, facing Kosei Fujita and Ryohei Oiwa. This was a really good opener. I think the New Japan guys showed a little better fundamentals overall. There were some iffy moments from the other two, but it was a strong match. And, of course, Fujita is getting a bit of a mini push right now with his recruitment into the TMDK faction, despite being a young lion. He's still, they're walking that line. He's still technically a young lion, but he's part of TMDK. And they've done some interesting things with Zack Sabre training him in the ring. And we'll talk about some of that. But good match. In the end, it was Fujita getting the win over Ozawa. But all four of these guys showed some real potential and just a fun 12-minute opener.
They didn't. I kind of thought that they would mess around with Fujita and Oiwa having more issues with each other, tagging as, not seeing eye to eye right now, and it really didn't happen as much. It just played it straight. It was a totally good match. When I was doing it, I kept my eye out for Ozawa and Yano because I thought they were really good in the matches that I saw on 1-1 with them. And a lot of these guys did not win their matches, and they came into this. So I was curious to see the win-loss records coming out of it. But like you said, guys for the future, right, to pay attention to all these names because kind of think that they might be people you'll see again in the future.
It's always worth that. I've been going back and watching old New Japan stuff from 2010, and because why not, right? But it's funny to go.
We have time.
If you go back to Wrestle Kingdom that year, there is a Young Lions match, and two of the Young Lions are Yoshihashi and Kazuchika Okada, and Okada ends up taking the pin, and he had the drop kick, by the way. But the rest of it, it's just kind of funny. And then at the G1 finals that year, Yujiro Takahashi is in the opening match against Nagata and gets an upset win. And you won't believe it, Yujiro Takahashi actually threw a moonsault off the top rope. Imagine him doing that now. You never see Yujiro doing that. So these are guys that you might go back and just say, oh, crap, I remember seeing him when he was just doing like little 10-minuters at the beginning of the shows right there. It does happen, folks. Those guys do become major stars, so keep an eye.
Always footage out there of what before they were stars.
Yeah, and that's one that I enjoy doing that with my girlfriend. I was just like, see the guy that's just in the black trunks and the black hair and all that? Just, can you know who that is? You know who that is? And she'll look and she'll just, wow, he looks kind of familiar. And then he'll do something. He's just, is that? And it looks like, like she's just studying it for a second. Is that Okada? Yeah, it's Okada. Just like, wow. And then immediately he's a lot better looking now. I said, okay, you can leave. That's all right. That's fine.
We're good. Thank you.
We don't need to talk too much about how good looking the dude is. I know.
We know. We all know. We don't need to
believe me. We're all well aware. He's got
genetic disadvantages about.
My inferiority complex needs no help. So up next was a tag team match. So New Japan got the first win. So you had an idea of what was about to happen here. So we had Tomohiro Ishii and Oscar Loibe against Daiki Inaba and Masa Kitamiya. Kitamiya is a hell of a wrestler. Ishii is a wonderful wrestler.
That was the part I liked.
Also helped that these two are doppelgangers of one another right here. So both of them are just built like a fire hydrants, tough as nails. I like that Kitamiya has gone all the way into being a Masa Saito tribute act, basically. So he's got Masa Saito's tights with Japan in English written down the sides, just like when Saito and Fuji were the WWF tag team champions in the early 80s. And of course, Saito had a long run throughout the United States and was a legend back with New Japan as well. So he had a long, wonderful career that unfortunately included a little jail time with Ken Patera right there, with a little incident where he fought half the Minneapolis Police Department. We'll move on. The match here,
McDonald?
I believe so. Yeah, it was something really goofy. Wrestlers a little too wound up after a show. But I don't think the original thing involved Saito. I think when they went to arrest, oh boy, it's been a long time, probably talking out of my ass here. When they went to arrest Patera at the hotel, they ran into Saito and ended up fighting him. They both ended up going to jail for a while. But anyway, in this one, none of that has to do with Wrestle Kingdom Night 2. It's just entertaining. But Ishii and Loewe against Inaba and Kitamiya. The highlight of this stuff was Kitamiya clashing with Ishii, who could play each other in their biopics, right? This is about the same guy. It was so much fun. Kitamiya did end up beating Loewe, of course. He was there to do the job in this one. And there was a post-match brawl. Inaba and Loewe were pretty much extraneous to this one. We were here to see the two bulls clash horns.
Right. The minute I laid eyes on Masa Kitamiya for that 1-1 show, I was like, oh, I know what this is gonna be. And you look at him, you're just like, yeah. Okay, I'm here for it. And we got it. We got 5 minutes of them kind of going at each other here or there, everywhere in the match. And honestly, almost worth the price of admission of the show itself just to watch this thing. It was a lot of fun. It was
a lot of fun. And Oscar Loewe, by the way, had a really good week. And this dude is coming along fast. And he's in these opening matches. He's still doing his Young Lion thing. But this guy is really shown up, and he's been in some interesting spots where he's been teaming with Chaos guys, doing the job, of course, protecting them from having to lose. But he's been good when he's been in there. I think that they've got something with him too. But I usually like the young lions, but I think this guy's really a standout lately. And the others are good too. Well, it's a strong crop of lions. So then we go on to the main show, and it started off with, there's some names here and long careers. We have Hiroshi Tanahashi, Toru Yano, Satoshi Kojima, and Takashi Sagura. Again, Kojima and Sagura.
GHC Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, exactly right. So we have we have mixed teams here. This is not New Japan versus Noah, because you had Naomichi Marufuji and El Fantasmo and Kaito, and let me make sure I hit this.
Kenta.
Kenta, yeah. And so, interesting thing about Marufuji and Kenta. Kenta and Marufuji were some of the last trainees of the All Japan Dojo under the Baba banner. You know, before everything changed when Baba passed away, Mitsuharu Misawa and most of the roster broke away to form Noah. But toward the very end there, when it was still, the four pillars were still around, Kobashi, Misawa, Kawada, Itaue, Marufuji and Kenta trained in that system before moving on. And so they have a big history together. And Kenta was trying to recruit Marufuji into Bullet Club, which didn't quite work. Marufuji, bit of a rebel, but not quite ready to go there yet. And he didn't do the big too sweet sign there. And that caused a little bit of consternation. But overall, this was a match between the guys with a ton of experience. It was fine. Geto put over Kojima's chops like nobody's business. Like it was like he was teaching a lesson on how to put over chops like that. And in the end, it was very basic. 12 minutes, 20 seconds. They knew that this was a match on the show, but not their time to shine necessarily. In the end, Yano pushed the Bullet Club into the referee. I believe it was a Noah ref. Then he hit a low blow on Geto, rolled him up, and pinned him. It was fine for what it was. I think the most interesting thing was the cell phone story that Chris Charlton related with Kevin Kelly on commentary when Marufuji was ribbing Kenta. He talked about how apparently in that dojo, if you do not answer the phone by the third ring, you are in deep, deep trouble. That was part of the Young Lions thing. So Marufuji would find a way to found one of the early mobile phones. There weren't this was in the late 90s. One of the very early mobile phones, and would wait until Kenta was just about at the men's room. Then he'd hit that button and have him scampering once again across the ring. And he would just do that over and over again, as he would keep Kenta from accomplishing his duties by hitting it with a mobile phone while spying on him. So, again, this is just a bunch of very, very well-tenured veterans that put on a fine match, knowing that there was big stuff to come on the card.
There were a few little things at play that I kind of noticed and I thought was interesting. The dynamic between Geto, ELP, and Kenta as Bullet Club members without Jay White, I think, is something that we need to be paying attention to in terms of how that they're playing out the pecking order, whether ELP is going to be taking this whole Bullet Club thing over if Jay White leaves. Is that kind of what's happening? All that stuff kind of needs to be just kind of on your radar if you're watching Bullet Club stuff, because nobody really knows what the next direction is with Jay White. Jay White isn't even really around to talk about it, which is part of the mystique, and kind of makes me think that he is going to be sticking around because his blueprint for this never really deviates. With that said,
it's also possible that Jay doesn't even know exactly where he's going to go next either.
Sure, but they had a really good setup for this match because the GHC tag champions faced Kenta and Marufuji at the 1-1 show. Hiroshi Tanahashi is going to be facing Kenta at the February 11th show, I believe, in a singles match before Kenta has his New Japan Strong match on February 18th against the winner of Fred Rosser and Peter Avalon, which I can't believe I actually have to dictate that as a stipulation before, but hey, that's what we're doing.
Pretty good Peter Avalon. Oh boy.
So I do credit them for managing to craft a match that managed to weave all these disparate elements and yet have a completely inconsequential finish with Yano pinning Gedo. And off we go to delay and parlay all these angles to the next appropriate time.
Tanahashi and Kenta should be interesting. Both those guys now know how to work, obviously. So that'll be a nice match to come out of that. I expect them to do something interesting, even though Tanahashi's knees are really not letting him do a whole lot right now. I hope he's okay for that one.
They had a horrific match a year ago.
Yeah, the Kenta and Tanahashi, the hardcore match at Wrestle Kingdom was interesting.
Took him out of action for 6 months.
Yeah, I know it. I'm curious to see what they do with the next one, because I don't know.
Kenta has a reason to be pissed, but I don't need them escalating this match to an extreme degree. If you wanted to do something where Kenta made it so that Tanahashi really couldn't go far in the New Japan Cup in the next month, I would like that long-term storytelling. That would be something that they could do. I don't know if they'll do that, but I would be into that kind of, given the amount of time that Kenta was on the shelf after their match.
So up next, we had El Desperado and Yohei. Yohei being one of the juniors for Noah, and this one really opened my eyes to Yohei. I love this one. I thought this match was really fun. It was fast-paced. It was exciting. I think Yohei would fit in the New Japan junior heavyweight division. He has charisma. He's certainly athletic. El Desperado's one of the better junior heavyweight workers out there, so this was really good. It ended with the numero dos and a win for Desperado, but my thoughts on this, again, El Desperado's a made man for me. I think he's absolutely wonderful and always a top contender for anything. It was Yohei was on my mind after this. So I'd like to see more of this guy. I hope someday maybe he's in Best of Super Junior. If we're going to work together, let's work together, right? Let's see him in Best of Super Juniors or in the junior tag. He really worked well and worked a very nice junior heavyweight New Japan style. This was among my favorite matches of the night.
I said it last week, and I'll say it again this week. This dude gave me so many Jeff Hardy vibes, but like his body is still like put together because he's been around a while. Apparently, he's been around for like 15 years at least. So this guy is like he's been out there. He's been doing it. So
you must be drinking the same water as Kota Ibushi.
He's looking good. He's looking spry. That's not a body frame that typically holds up well in wrestling, but he's looking like he is holding up just fine. And this match definitely exceeded my expectations, even though I already knew going in, hey, Yohei could potentially surprise you.
So we moved on to another match that was worked with the idea of putting one guy over. This is a 6-man match, but it was about one dude. It was Tiger Mask, Ryusuke Taguchi, and Master Wato taking on Junta Miyawaki, Alejandro, and AMAKUSA. And AMAKUSA is the GHC Junior Heavyweight Champion. We know now that the entire idea was to build toward he and Hiromu Takahashi. So if we're going to have the GHC and IWGP Heavyweight Champions meet, let's have the Junior Heavyweights meet. So this match was about making him look good. Not the trickiest thing in the world. This guy is really good. But this match, he really shined. And they got him ready for Hiromu. And after watching AMAKUSA in this one, I am more than ready to see he and I feel is the best junior heavyweight worker on earth, Hiromu Takahashi. I'm in for it. I'm up for it. Can't wait for it. This guy really impressed me. Again, this guy's not right off the truck. He's been good for a while. But seeing him in this one, it reminded me that Noah has a lot of really good junior heavyweight talent when most people's minds go to New Japan for that.
So you may have seen AMAKUSA gone viral in the last couple of days. He's the wrestler that jumped through the ropes and basically corkscrewed himself so that his head was almost at the ground and took out, I think, actually Alejandro in a match later on in the week. I'd also tell you, everybody who might be curious about this guy, go back to the 1-1 show, go watch Junta Miyakawa and AMAKUSA in their title match, because they had a title match against each other and then teamed up in this match against the New Japan guys. A match was one of the best matches on that card. It was just just top level stuff. You know, when you want to say like these guys have yet to be discovered, there are people that have been singing these guys' praises for a long time, but we just don't cover the Noah beat and are not familiar with it. But they're right. These guys are great, and they delivered, and they outshone the New Japan guys in this match. Wato, Taguchi, and Tiger Mask, you know what they offer. This was a spotlight to put the eyes on the other three, and when they had the opportunity to shine, they shine bright like diamonds, my friend. Bright like diamonds.
And if I made it sound like I was dismissing Noah as being wallowing in obscurity somewhere, I don't want to make that impression. This has been a long time major company in Japan. It's just not one we cover on this show. And unfortunately, I don't have time to watch enough Noah. I always enjoy it when I see it, and I would love to see more of it. I just don't have all the hours in the day right there. So whenever I get guys like Yohei and AMAKUSA who have been around for a while, just not where I can see them all the time, it's a real treat. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So if I fumbled that up and said that they've been wrestling in a high school gym in front of 20 people, that is not what's been going on. These guys are
not at all. They're wrestling at the same venues that New Japan does on their lower card shows, where it's the venues that are brightly lit with the stadium seating, with the bleacher seating sometimes. They're doing the same shows. They're at the same places. This isn't like a one-upsmanship or anything like that. It's just there is so much wrestling in the world. And frankly speaking, New Japan is considered the number one promotion in Japan and what we've chosen to cover on this show. So when we talk about other promotions, it is literally because we do not have a whole lot of exposure to it, because this takes up so much of our time.
And the next match on this card, and that's very well put, the next match on this card already took up a lot of time on this show, which was the Kiyomiya Inamura versus Okada and Makabe.
One more time for that kick at home.
Yeah, ooh, man. I give Okada credit for taking that thing. That was nasty.
I mean, you kind of have to throw it out there in the middle of the review just to remember what the tone is as we're watching it and we're going through it. I'm like, now this happened, and now let's move on to the rest of our show. That's basically what it was. Like, it was there, and then it all right, well, I guess we'll find out what happened from there afterwards.
But the next thing is interesting because after that, which is what everyone's been talking about, we came down to the Congo faction versus LIJ faction portion of the program, best of 5, which was actually the selling point for this show in the first place. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the whole Kiyomiya Okada thing. That was just a match on the card that was kind of flying under the radar there. But this show was sold at the idea of Congo and LIJ going at it in a series of singles matches, coming off an angle where Congo invaded the post-match press conference there of LIJ at the Tokyo Dome on January 4th. So it began with Bushi and Tadasuke, and there you have it right there. Tadasuke, this is one charismatic dude. I mean, his facial expressions, he has a very animated face. It worked real well, especially in contrast to the masked man, Bushi. And Bushi controlled most of the match because he was going to be doing the job. And he looked motivated to put on a good show. Bushi's usually pretty good, but this is one of the better versions of Bushi we've gotten in a while. He actually hit the black mist on Tadasuke and went for his pinfall finish. However, Tadasuke was able to counter that into a crucifix and kind of get a flash pin to put Congo up 1-0, even though he was blind as a bat from basically being spit in the face. So
I thought that was clever. I thought it was. Would have been a one-upsmanship, and just let you know that Congo was not going to go quietly into this night.
And we mention it all the time. Bushi does yeoman's work there because he's the only member of LIJ that's not heavily protected. And it's something that he has to take a lot of losses. And the fact that he can do it while still looking good is a testament to his talent. And this was a good match.
100%. I have nothing to add out of that. I had a great time watching it. Maybe in the future, this is going to be Teton's spot. This is going to be, instead of Bushi, Teton will be doing the bottom of the LIJ on the card, potentially the loss, and Bushi will be moving up in the stable from there. But who knows? There's a lot there's a lot to sift through as 2023 goes forward.
And we'll be seeing Titan again at the Fantasticamania tour coming up when the CMLL stars invade. He's back in Mexico right now. Next match, so 1-0 Congo. Hiromu Takahashi took on Hajime Ohara, and this one was a bit of a tough sell in that Ohara isn't really seen as being on the level of Hiromu Takahashi. Not very many are. And this one was another example of just how good Takahashi is. He worked very hard to establish Ohara as a threat. Because not many saw him as being on that elite level, but he sold effectively for this guy. And there were some moments when it looked like our man was in peril right there. He did a hell of a job. He missed a running drop kick from the apron to the floor, which was a rough bump to take. But again, it put over the idea that Ohara had him scouted and was playing, at least for a night, close to that level. There was a moment here, a cool spot that I noted. Ohara fired up with a series of lightning fast, hard slaps, bounces himself off the ropes once Hiromu was stunned, ran into a thrust kick from Hiromu. Then when Hiromu went to hit a move on him, he turned it into a mean-looking version of a brainbuster. It took me longer to describe that than it did for those two guys to do it. They were so quick, and both of them are just lightning fast, and that was a lot of fun. His submission hold, that's Ohara's, is called the Muy Bien. Both of them have a history of work in Japan. They missed each other in CMLL, going on an excursion barely, but they were there around the same time, but not at the same time. So his submission is called the Muy Bien, and did an excellent job of teasing that Hiromu might actually tap to this thing. So it didn't, and he got to the ropes and ended up getting the Time Bomb 2 for the pinfall right there.
How long was that? How long was he in that submission for? It felt like 90 seconds.
Yeah,
probably like 45 or something, but it felt like 90.
It was quite a struggle right there, but 13 minutes and 5 seconds, okay. And it's to the point now, and has been for years, where any Hiromu Takahashi match that isn't great, I'm a little surprised. This is another great match. This guy's one of the best in the world. It was a great showing for Ohara, and I think it's going to help his career. And I just enjoyed, and it tied the series up at 1-1.
This was I kind of did predictions on the matches last week, and I was most confident that the outcome of this match was that Hiromu was going to win this match, right? Best of 5, regardless of how any of the other matches were going to go. I was most confident, because of him being a champion, that he probably wasn't going to lose this match.
So we had another one here. Once it was 1-1 between two men that are former tag team partners and have held gold together. What's that? Oh, there we go.
Oh, this was good.
Yes, it was. And Manabu Soya, there it is against Sanada. And did you have the same reaction I did, Jeremy, when I saw Manabu Soya with the red beard, the red hair?
Sheamus.
And I just thought it's a Japanese Sheamus.
Yep.
100%. Can't be the only one. Yeah, there it is. There it is.
So Sheamusy.
he was feeling the Sheamus. Very Sheamusy.
Sheamus O'Shaughnessy over here.
Sheamus O'Shaughnessy. These two are former 2-time All Asian Tag Team Champions together back in their All Japan days. So there a lot of what was the connective tissue is the term that everybody seems to use in wrestling now. So sure. We have Noah, we have All Japan history going here. We have New Japan. So yeah, we mentioned the Sheamus thing with the beard color, but the fact is these two were tag team partners that held gold together, and they worked really well together too. Now Soya, you can see the quads a little bit here. This is a strong man. I don't know if the picture really puts over how
that's
powerful.
A Miro build. The dude is built like Miro. Like,
yeah, he is. That's a good way of putting it right there. He actually countered a skull end into a power slam, just muscled up. Muscled Sanada up. There was another skull end that was countered into a deadlift suplex. So this guy was just putting on all the big strong moves right there, similar to what Jeff Cobb does sometimes. He's not as big as Cobb and almost certainly not as strong as Cobb, but he was doing stuff like that. And it was interesting because Sanada is such an athlete that he can feed for stuff like that beautifully. He hit a DDT that looked like he damn near killed Sanada too. That was for a really good near fall. And once that happened, that got the crowd into it, where before they were, I'm not going to say the crowd was dead because that's not fair, but that one moved it up about 3 notches because that DDT looked like a finish. And when Sonata kicked out, now everybody's like, okay, this is going to end in a couple of seconds. I want my guy to win. The end of it was Soya working relentlessly toward hitting his big lariat. And they found a couple of ways for Sonata to barely escape before he finally ate the big lariat and he got the pinfall. It made it 2-1 Congo. It also made it into a 4-4 overall singles record between the two. And it put that in the proper peril for LIJ. Now they have to win 2 big ones in a row in order to pull this off. And it had the subtext of the former tag champs, and it was an enjoyable match.
I want to give Sonata a lot of credit in this match for doing his part, but this was a performance by Soya, personally, to me. I think that he made a name for himself off of Sonata in this match, and if that was the goal, it's probably, mission accomplished. I loved when he just yelled Sonata's name before he gave him his ballistic finisher. It was just a nice touch. Everything about it, it felt like 2 guys who were very familiar with each other, but had no problem beating the absolute piss out of each other.
They have that kind of trust that workers have sometimes where you hit your friends the hardest because you know that you can and they won't be bothered by it. And you know that when they hit you back, they'll do it safely. It's an odd thing in wrestling is sometimes you walk on eggshells with the guys you don't like and you hit the guys you do like the hardest because of that trust thing. And you could tell that was part of this. So, and it added to it.
Yeah. So you know what the next match was?
Yeah, I think it was a little stiff too, wasn't it?
And the next match was the match of the night for me.
It was Katsuhiko Nakajima, who is a tough man. When I saw a night of the N1 tournament when I was in Japan. I went to Korakuen Hall and saw it's their version of the G1, is the N1, Noah's thing. And Nakajima had a knockdown drag-out match that was just full of these stiff kicks, stiff chops. He wrestled Shingo Takagi here in Yokohama, and it was another really, this is the kind of match, this is a tough way to make a living, Jeremy, working matches like this. But everything was snug in this one. Forearms, the kicks. There was a head kick from Nakajima to Takagi that teased a knockout that looked like it absolutely could have been. These guys were hitting each other very hard. It got the crowd to rally for Shingo because Shingo sold everything so effectively. I'm not convinced that so much of it was selling as much as him just reacting to getting hit that damn hard. What did you think of this one? You said it was your match of the night. Talk to us a little bit more about why you felt it was, because I think you're probably correct.
There was a lot of lineage that was played up into this match. Nakajima, to my understanding, had 2 wins over Takagi, and Takagi had never beaten Nakajima despite their history together. So on. And so you're coming in, you're almost thinking that Takagi is gonna have to win this match. Like you can't go 0-3 against this dude. But when you're watching it, Nakajima's faster. He's sometimes stronger. He's got the counters. And Takagi can't keep up. And they're constantly selling that he's got the match tomorrow night. All the disparate factors that are really putting him as an underdog, even though, as a former world champion, you kind of think that this guy shouldn't be the underdog. They sold you that Takagi was probably not going to win this match. And then he came from behind and rallied and won the match in such a compelling fashion that it really spoke to the performance of the 2 wrestlers and their familiarity with each other, that they managed to make you believe the outcome, even though there was a lot of elements making you feel like that was not going to be the way the match was going to go.
My favorite spot in this one, by the way, Nakajima went for a kick to the stomach. Shingo Takagi caught it. Similar to what you see when a guy catches a leg and then turns it into a dragon screw. But instead of doing that, Nakajima tried to punch him. So while holding onto the leg, he intercepts the punch. Then turned that in one move into a Made in Japan. Looked fantastic. After that, he was able to get a pumping bomber, the big lariat of his own there for a near fall. Then he gave him basically 3 finishers in order to win this thing. A half and half.
Put him away.
Yeah, last of the dragon. The story being that it takes all 3 to knock this guy down. I love this one. I mentioned this is a tough way to make a living, but boy, it's entertaining. and it tied the whole thing at 2-2, which it had to, right? We had to go into the final match with the entire thing in the balance. That's the whole point of this, right? So it worked, and a lot of fun, and it brought us to Naito and Kenoh with everything on the line. And boy, yeah, then these two went after it. The Battle of the Rebels, these two are different personalities, but they have the similar idea of being the faction leaders that are most anti-authoritarian, so to speak, in their respective companies. And you saw Naito working the stalling, the classic Naito stalling. You don't see it at that level like he was giving it to Kenoh there, where he would roll out of the ring, walk around
a lot of big timing. A lot of big timing.
Roll in, roll out the other side, that type of thing.
Same with Okada. Those two guys, they big timed him.
Yeah. And then once they got wrestling, there was a lot of it was a slower pace match. And I don't mean boring. That's not what I'm saying. Well worked. But they worked that deliberate main event style, partially because they knew they were going to be going over 25 minutes. This one
very methodical.
26:57, so almost 27. And Kenoh does a little bit more traditional heel work, taunting the crowd, jawing with people. Naito really doesn't do that. He does it more with looks and smirks and body language. Kenoh, a little bit different type of that anti-authoritarian heel. One of his big moves is basically the coup de grace, the jump off the top rope, crashing down with the double stomp. He teased it in the match, missed it, but then hit it later for a really terrific near fall on Naito. And in the end, though, Naito managed to turn a slam into a Destino for a close 2 count, Valencia, and then a Destino again for 3. This was a solid match. It doesn't have the high spots, and certainly those guys don't work a style that involves a ton of dives and things. But this was a match between just two really excellent workers that had twists and turns, but not the giant high spots. I still found it really good. It was almost like you watch some of those old, Briscoe Dory Funk matches where they're not even bouncing off the ropes yet you're riveted to it. It's just two guys that really know how to work with one another and have that it factor, that charisma that makes you just drawn to everything you do. How would you summarize this one?
So this match was really built off of social media. Like, you wanted these two guys to get their hands on each other more so than any of the other guys in the feuds that they had going on. Like, you knew Nakajima and Takagi was going to be a banger. You knew the history going in with Soya and Sonata, and you knew that the two lower cards were going to have, a vibe. And after you've had Okada and Kiyomiya basically go off the rails in their match, you had a sense of uncertainty in that this could go in many different ways because, all bets were off. And then you just got the traditional main event match in which Naito and Kenoh are mirror images of each other. One is basically a younger version of the other. The other is a wizened version of, it's like looking in the mirror, just seeing an older and a younger reflection of each other. And so it doesn't surprise me that Naito won this match. Although part of me, like, if the Muta angle afterward wasn't going to happen, I kind of would have gone in the other direction. But that's personally just me, because I think that there's a lot more mileage to be had by giving a prominent Noah roster member a big win over a New Japan main event act. I think everyone would benefit from that in a preliminary stage like this, but it didn't happen, and that's okay. But like I said with some of these other matches, this isn't the last time that these two are going to face each other. And I think that we are going to get to a point where, even after the match where Naito wanted him to, either join or acknowledge LIJ, and Kenoh's like, I'm out. I'm not doing that. That there's more of our food that we get to eat from this meal. And I am, after all said and done, sign me up. I'm here for it.
Naito, I felt like, had to win the match, knowing what was about to happen, the
Sure.
whole thing with Muto, because now he's going to be headlining a Tokyo Dome show. So I just think the way New Japan books, there's no way his shoulders see a 3 count until at least that Tokyo Dome show, and probably not even there.
Yeah,
probably not even there. So that's how it had to go. And of course, it is a New Japan. It is Wrestle Kingdom. I expected LIJ to pull this thing out 3-2. And I did expect it to be 3-2 at least. So good work though by everybody. Kenoh's a really talented dude. So I would like to see more of him as well. I'd like to see a lot of these guys. No, I'd like to see more Noah. Hell, but
sure.
Just an enjoyable show. And then of course, he gave the speech afterwards. Naito did, and as he was leaving, he was most of the way up the aisle. Muto, probably because it took his knees that long to get to the ring, gets in and challenged Naito for the last one. And if you're wondering, yeah, there's a lot of last matches for Muto. There seems to be
what a pro.
every
what
other
a
week.
Pro.
Yes, I'm expecting him to do the last match for however many promotions he's been. Allegedly, Jeremy, this is his final one. I ain't buying it.
There were originally 5. There were originally 5 matches that he was going to have.
How many's he had?
But I think he had 5 last month.
Yeah, I think so. he's working now more than he did. But anyway, point being, this is it. The last love. We're going to be at the Tokyo Dome. It's going to be Naito and Muto. Besides the fact that, Kevin Kelly was openly laughing about whether this would be the last match, because it never really is, right? How many people have willingly walked away? And I think the list is Jack Briscoe, from the original Briscoe family, Jack and Jerry from the 70s in Florida. I think he was the last guy that just walked away and did not actually come back. And to this day, I think he might be the only one that never did that one more match. But this whole retirement tour thing is reminding me of Wahoo McDaniel. Jeremy, I'll tell you why. For years, and I do mean years, plural, Wahoo would have retirement matches at every independent show he worked. So there are probably dozens and dozens of Wahoo McDaniel retirement matches where he would have his last match and they would get the standing ovation as Wahoo's last match. Then he would go do it again the next town over the next night. It's starting to feel a little bit like that. So we'll see if this is the very last one. But there it is. That's how we went out with Muto and Naito. It shows you a little bit the stroke that Muto has in that on a Noah New Japan show, he gets to be the last thing, making the final challenge in the ring and hyping up a show that's not a New Japan or a Noah show officially. So there you go.
Okay, so is this going to close out the show, or do you think Okada and Kiyomiya close out the show?
Oh, I think if Keiji Muto is in a position of influence, he will close the show. It depends on just how is Muto just the attraction, or is he actually doing the promoting and is actually in charge of this Tokyo Dome event? Because if he is actually in charge of this Tokyo Dome event, I absolutely believe that it will end with Keiji Muto in the ring. I don't think he'll be able to help himself, Jeremy. I think he would put himself on top of The Rock versus Austin if he could.
I guess with Naito getting his Tokyo Dome main event, everybody's happy in 2023.
I don't know. But I don't know. If it's New Japan or Noah has enough stroke in it that they can tell him, no, you go. But is he going to go second to last at his own show? I just don't.
Now that I think about it, he's not.
Yeah.
Now we got this one.
Yeah, boy, we got all kinds of stuff there. So now, allegedly, right? Because Okada's playing it cool, saying he's above all this, but this is going to go in the ring. You don't get graphics like this in Japan unless they're going to put the match in the ring. That's none of that WWE bullshit. This match is going in. So we're going to see that. Yeah. What else we got? Do we have other stuff?
We got one more.
Yes, there it is. How about this? Yeah, Hiromu and
that could be a special one.
I really think that's probably, the two that we just had up there, Okada and Kiyomiya and Takahashi and AMAKUSA, probably the 2 best matches of the night in some order or another. Also worth noting, let's see, we're going to have Gedo and Taiji Ishimori against Nosawa and Mazada, which is a Noah team right there. There's going to be an All Japan representation, DDT representation. We're also going to be seeing who else? Tokyo Joshi Pro. Tokyo Joshi Pro is another women's wrestling company that I believe is owned by the same parent company as Noah. So a similar situation to the Stardom New Japan relationship there. So a lot of different things. And we're going to see that. We found out we're going to have a junior heavyweight. And we don't know enough about this to really talk about too much, but a junior heavyweight card promoted by Hiromu Takahashi that could have as many as 22 different promotions represented.
I have the list of promotions right here. You ready for it?
Oh boy, let's hear it. See how many. Play along at home and see how many of these names you've ever heard of. Let's go. They're not names, but promotions.
Ready for it? 2AW, no. Pro Wrestling, All Japan Pro Wrestling, Big Japan Pro Wrestling, CMLL, DDT, Tradition.
Yes, okay. We talked about that one on the show a couple weeks ago. That's Fujinami's company.
Ganbare Pro Wrestling, GLEAT, Just Tap Out, Kyushu Pro Wrestling, Michinoku Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Osaka Pro Wrestling, Pancrase Mission, Pro Wrestling Basara, Pro Wrestling Freedom, Pro Wrestling Noah, Pro Wrestling Secret Base, Pro Wrestling 01, and Ryukyu Dragon Pro Wrestling. So, you know what I get from that? A lot of tag matches. A lot of tag matches.
A lot of tags. That'll be very interesting to see.
A lot of tag matches there.
So
I think it's a one show.
Yeah, it's just one show. And then, there's we'll get into all those. That's out to come. I think that's in March 1st. March 1st is when that junior
March 1st, right before the Anniversary Show, right before the New Japan Cup, right after Fantastica Mania.
We're throwing around a lot of dates here. Yeah. And we're throwing around a lot of locations. We're going to get that a little bit organized here later in the show. So
the good news is we're here every week and we'll keep it organized. So you just have to show up and listen, and we'll talk about it for you when it's time.
And you can listen either here on YouTube, or we're going to have a podcast feed going where you get your podcasts, the whole usual Spotify's, the Apple Podcasts, the Amazon Podcasts, all that stuff.
Yeah, we are.
And so that's available as well. And if you do, just do us a little favor, give us a nice rating, maybe a little review. That helps people find the show. We're very grateful to you for that. And we will have.
I will give you a star rating if you give me a star rating. I don't know. Wherever you give me a star rating, I'll give you a star rating. I will make the effort.
This is the only time I will care about a star rating. Is right here, right there. Yeah, that's so we're going to be doing that, and that feed's going to be up. The Justin Nipper show will be up, as well as the show before that. We're going to have all that for you there, so that you can listen and as well as watch us. So with that in mind, Jeremy, we do need to talk about the New Beginning in Nagoya, which happened.
We are on an hour and 8 minutes in, and we can actually talk about a New Japan exclusive match right now.
There you go. And now the road to New Beginning and New Beginning in Nagoya, mostly preview tags, and we talked about what the matchups are coming up. We're going to go over those in a bit. So we're not going to go over these match by match. We don't have time, and it's entertaining, but these matches are mostly house show style for the most part. The main event at Nagoya, which was in front of 1,650 fans, not a bad crowd there, was the mixed martial arts match for the King of Pro Wrestling provisional title between Shingo Takagi and the Great O-Khan.
I made a joke about this match on the Wrap. I was on the Wrap, which covers all things WWE for Fight Game Media, cheap plug. And I said I was not sure whether this mixed martial arts match between Great O-Khan and Shingo Takagi was going to be better or worse than the pitch black match between LA Knight and Bray Wyatt at the
it's going to be better than that. It's going to be better.
No. Afterwards, I found out that this is in fact better, but at the time, I wasn't sure.
Oh, but that Bray Wyatt thing is going to be so god awful. Bless us all. Oh God,
Black Light Special, baby.
Oh man, a guy goes on a spending spree at Spirit Halloween. We got to watch all this crap on WWE TV again. This match though. So we had this thing under MMA rules, allegedly. This stuff never works, Jeremy. This whole idea of working an MMA match,
this was voted on.
Doing this kind of stuff in a pro wrestling context just doesn't pan out. And it never looks right.
This 2-1 vote, though. Like, the fans must be right. There was they had the Shingo Takagi 30 count rule, or they had the MMA. And on a 2-1 vote, like 67%, I think, chose the MMA rules.
It's got to be the curiosity factor, though, right? Because we've already seen a 30 count match.
Yeah.
I bet if they went back and said, we'll do it again, we'll either do 30 count or this again. 30 count will win. I'll bet that. So
monkey paw. It was a monkey paw choice.
The whole thing was goofy, though, because first of all, Hiromu Takahashi jumped up on the apron in the middle of the match. Francesco Akira ran in and knocked him off of the apron, which made Great O-Khan stop what he was doing and go talk to Akira like it was something that was unplanned. And O-Khan was telling him, no, wait, you don't do that now. You just go outside the ring. It was a weird moment, and it was a very awkward moment. Then, in the middle of this thing where they're trying to work an MMA fight, the referee is distracted and he hangs Shingo Takagi over the top rope with the judo belt. There's outside interference, and keep in mind, the United Empire usually doesn't interfere, but Will Ospreay hits an Oscutter. They choose this moment to do it in the match where it makes the least sense that there would be any kind of outside interference. I thought it was very silly. I don't think it's any kind of coincidence at all that this match picked up what little bit it did once they started doing regular wrestling moves and almost kind of forgot about the whole stipulation. Like they realized the whole thing wasn't working and they said, all right, never mind, let's just wrestle.
When Takagi took out his gi, it felt like it was a different match.
Yes, and one that was at least decent to watch.
So I think this is definitely a situation of too many cooks in the kitchen with the booking of New Japan. It's like Takagi has a full dance card, and so does Okada in a lot of ways. But they have a match with each other to intersect in the middle of all of this that kind of makes everything else that they got going on, at least in Takagi's case, like it felt like a lame duck match. Like you're not going to have Shingo lose a King of Pro Wrestling match before he's challenging for the world title. It's just not going to happen. Like that's just not how it works. So you have to have that level of plausible deniability going into this match if you don't want to feel that way. But if you do, you need to be watching a match that will actually compel you and convince you that, oh yeah, Takagi could lose this match. But after the night before with Nakajima, it's like they had an uphill battle. This wasn't anything that anyone had any real control over, and they did the best that they could. And that's me putting it the nicest way I can.
It was a tough one, and there was something that our regular viewer Colin mentioned in the comments section not all that long ago. It just feels like Shingo's a little bit lost in the roster, and they weren't sure what they were really doing with him, and he and I kind of went back and forth a little bit on that. I think it's still true that they're not really sure what to do with him, so they're just doing everything with him. I mean, you're going to get a good match with he and Okada. I don't think anybody doubts that. But, we'll throw him in there in this thing and get Wrestle Kingdom Night 2, and he'll have a good match with Nakajima. It's like, we need something for this, so let's just throw him in there in a goofy match with Great O-Khan. It'll be okay. It's like they're not doing anything with him by doing everything with him. And so I don't expect him to really beat Okada. I don't think that's a story because again, Okada has other things set up for later. So, it's a thing where Shingo is just kind of stuck in this strange limbo. But if you're going to be stuck in limbo, at least be stuck in main event limbo.
There does seem to be an effect that New Japan is too healthy and has a bloated roster. Like there's too much top talent, and they're all like there's not enough room at the top for it. I mean, really, of the main event scene, the only one that's missing out of the last few years is Kota Ibushi. And, he's already been figured out of the plan, but even still, like all the top names have either been there, been around, had a run with the title, like there's just not room right now. And it's unfortunate. And Takagi is apparently a company man. He just wants to go out and wrestle and have good matches. And he's perfectly fine with that. He just, what I mean? It's super weird. Like I want him to have these banger matches all the time, but like he's just here, there, everywhere, but not like a pillar of any particular company. And when you're a pillar, you feel more important than if you're here, there, and everywhere. It's kind of like a stable freelancer for the company.
I suppose if you're Takagi, your attitude toward this is, well, if I'm in limbo, I'd rather be in limbo wrestling either in, 2 main events and a semi-main on huge shows than anything else. It's not a bad problem to have, I suppose. But just as a fan of the dude, I would like to see.
There's just so much talent up there that like he got squeezed out after Wrestle Kingdom last year, and the best that they really could do was give him the King of Pro Wrestling title. And the dude has actually elevated the King of Pro Wrestling title, frankly speaking, from what it was a year ago. So,
Yeah, he and Taichi did that. Yeah, absolutely.
We want bigger and better things for him, but you can't say that he hasn't, put the work in when he's been given the assignment.
So that was the New Beginning in Nagoya. Wanted to mention something for the folks that have New Japan, the streaming service, New Japan World. Road to New Beginning at the Korakuen Hall on the 24th. Yeah, today. It was early, very in the wee hours of the morning today. They had a show that was not spectacularly attended, about 705 people in the building, but those 705 were treated to a couple of really good matches. Now, these were preview tags, strictly preview. Again, there's not any big angles coming out of this. They're just making sure the champions and the challengers all look strong. But this is one I would recommend if you have New Japan World, go out of your way to watch TMDK, which was Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, Zack Sabre Jr., and Kosei Fujita against Bishamon, so Yoshihashi, Goto, Oscar Luebi, and Tomohiro Ishii, because that 8-man tag at Korakuen was a great match. They're doing these things with Zack and Fujita where he's basically teaching him how to do moves in the ring, and they're playing it up. So, Fujita will go in there and do a move. Zack will signal for a tag. He'll tag himself in, demonstrate the move, then tag back out to Fujita, who does it again, but better. And they're like, yeah, there you go. Like Zack's training him in the ring. Kind of fun. Nice little thing there. But I mentioned the mini push that Fujita is getting. This is another bit of example out of it. Zack actually gave in one of those moments where everybody's hitting a big move on everybody, Zack kicked Ishii, who stumbled back into Fujita for a fantastic near fall. Then Fujita hit a belly to belly on him for a near fall. Then they ended up winning the match because Luebe was in there to take the loss. So you're seeing him getting near falls on upper tier guys and also getting wins because they're putting traditional young lions across from him. So a little bit of a mini push going for Fujita there. I don't expect him to suddenly
begin.
Yeah, and the other thing to look out for in that match with Zack and Ishii coming up, Zack really doing a lot of work on Ishii's arms, both of them, left and right, which is interesting to see. Don't usually see people work the right side, but he was doing that in this match a lot. The other one, Jeremy, I wanted to mention, Shota Umino, Toru Yano, and Kazuchika Okada against Naito, Shingo, and Sanada. You just have to look at that lineup and know that it's probably going to be really good. But they are working very hard to get Umino over, and they did a good job on this one. In this match, Umino hit a Death Rider on Naito, for one thing, and laid him out, then put one on Sanada, then pinned Sanada while staring down Naito. And that's just a little bit of extra steam on that one. The funny thing is, Jeremy, I kind of felt like they were setting up Umino for the big win here, but now, because I think Naito's not going to lose until that Tokyo Dome show, and maybe not even there, I think Naito's going to beat Umino, but I think it's going to be a thing where they're going to make Shota look as strong as possible going in. Going to make a little prediction on this show right now. I think Shota at least makes the semifinals of the New Japan Cup, because if he doesn't get
a spot for him,
if he doesn't get a big win against Naito, which I thought might have been the plan, maybe, I don't have any inside information on that, then I think he's going to look good going all the way up to that match, barely lose to Naito, then make a run in the Cup, because I think they're very serious about making this guy a star. Strong 6-man tag match there in Korakuen today. Go out of your way to see it.
Nothing to add to all that. I think Shota having a good run in the New Japan Cup is a really strong goal. I think that's great. We're going to have a bracketology episode, maybe with a special guest in a couple of weeks. But I circle that one because we're going to have a lot of fun planning out the New Japan Cup and game planning what we think is going to happen. I have a very strong success rate in predicting New Japan Cup winners, so I'm going to ride that high and embarrass myself when I get it wrong this year. But, when I underplay it and then I win, everybody's proud of me.
There you have it. So Jeremy, let's look at some of these big shows coming up. Now, we're here every week, so we're going to keep you up to date on some of these things, but there's going to be some smaller house shows going on throughout the week. There's going to be an actual Tamashi show in the Oceania promotion in Sydney on February 3rd. The next big set of events is the 2-night event in Sapporo Sapporo.
The 4th and the 5th?
Sapporo on the 4th and the 5th. Yeah. And again, you've been hearing that there might be some weather issues there. Apparently there's snow and cold, unlike like rarely seen in that region. And that's the furthest north and snowiest part of Japan, but apparently it's getting a healthy dose. So we'll see if there are any travel issues. TJP had some actually in just getting to Japan. But 2-night event in Sapporo. Why do I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable there? Sapporo. On the 4th, TJP and Francesco Akira will defend the junior tag team titles against Doki and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. We'll also see Taichi against Will Ospreay in a special singles match. We'll see Shota Umino against Naito that night on the 5th. So 2 nights in a row. Yoshihashi and Goto Bishamon will defend the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships for the first time since winning them at Wrestle Kingdom against Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols, the TMDK team. We'll also see Tomohiro Ishii and Zack Sabre Jr. in the first television title defense. And in addition to that, we'll also see the main event, Yo challenging Hiromu Takahashi for the junior heavyweight title. So that's the next big one there.
My big prediction, I think I said it before, but I'm going to say it again, is I think TMDK takes the tag team titles at this event.
You're feeling strong about that. Okay.
Feel spicy about that one.
We're going to talk more about that next week.
That's my big prediction. And I'm just going to ride that one all the way through until I conveniently ignore it.
So just asking here, do you have anything else, anything from New Japan Strong to talk about? What else is on your mind?
No, I think we should take a quick breather and then go into the history lesson, because this will probably be a very somber one. So why don't we go ahead and go with that?
Well, and of course we've talked about everywhere the whole tragic loss of Jay Briscoe in that accident that also severely injured his 2 daughters. As of the time we're taping this show, his daughters seem to be doing a little bit better, and it's taking the first steps on what will surely be a long road to recovery. And our thoughts are certainly with the Briscoes' family, their friends, and everything else. It's a very sad thing. I know that Jay was. He talked about how they were on the very first Ring of Honor show, the Briscoes. And I remember getting into Ring of Honor, Jeremy, because I saw a match between the Briscoes and the SATs. And I remember seeing that on a DVD that was getting passed around and just thinking, my God, these guys are just so talented. And I got to watch them for, 20 years. And really one of the great tag teams of this century. And I know that there was a thing where Jay made a mistake and made some comments that got him probably limited his career in a lot of ways. Certainly limited his career in a lot of ways, which he later apologized profusely for. Even so, just the loss of him, it's a tough one. And they just recently had some of the best tag team matches of this era against FTR. They were still going very strong, and to be cut off like that, it's very sad, both from a wrestling standpoint, but even more so. A 12-year-old girl and a 9-year-old girl lost their dad, and it's just something that's very sad. It made me go back and look at their career, and I mentioned that the very early Ring of Honor stuff all the way through. And since this is a New Japan show, I decided to go back and look at their time in New Japan, and while it's not the most extensive run in history, they were certainly part of New Japan, and they managed to get into the history books in it, Jeremy. So let's talk about that a little bit. You're going to hear a lot of things about their career in Ring of Honor and other places, but there's some New Japan stuff here for you. Their first work in Japan was actually for Noah, and that came all the way back in 2008. One of the reasons you saw both companies do a tribute to the Briscoes there before Night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom is because the Briscoes have affiliation with both companies.
A lovely tribute, by the way.
It was really nice. Very, very
really
nice.
Tribute.
And in that time in Noah in 2008, these guys ran into some of the very best talent that company had. Here, how about this one? They were in the ring with Mitsuharu Misawa, Kenta, Taiji Ishimori, Marufuji, Takashi Segura, Davey Richards, Bryan Danielson, and Kota Ibushi at various times during that tour in 2008. So it shows you that Noah took them very seriously very quickly because they were in with some of the best talent they had. And I wanted to mention Yoshinobu Kanemaru as well, because he was the GHC junior heavyweight champion at the time, and Jay challenged him for the title. Kanemaru did retain the title in there, but during that run, they were built up enough that he got a title shot against Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So already some New Japan linkage there. At first, they just worked New Japan and ROH combined shows. That started in 2014. And some of the working agreements between New Japan and ROH, where they would do these, what were they called, Global Wars shows, where it was the two companies coming together. They actually challenged Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson for the IWGP Tag Team titles in the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City in 2014. In another New Japan Ring of Honor show, May 5th, 2015, they lost to, listen to this tag team, Chaos, Shinsuke Nakamura and Kazuchika Okada. That match took place at the 2300 Arena, the former ECW arena there.
Dang.
Yeah, I wonder if that's anywhere. I don't know if that's on Honor Club or anywhere else, but I would love to see that one now. 2016 was their first proper New Japan run where they weren't representing Ring of Honor in a combined show. This is where they were actually just part of a New Japan tour. And they mostly wrestled against Bullet Club. They were on kind of the chaos-y side of it, and we'll get into that. They mostly wrestled Bullet Club, the Young Bucks, and the combinations of Bad Luck Fale, Kenny Omega, who was still the cleaner then. And that was the only year they worked those non-promoted shows. And the key to this was they were the very first, Jeremy, never open weight 6-man tag team champions with Toru Yano.
So I loved it so much.
They defeated the team of they beat? It was Bad Luck Fale, Yujiro Takahashi, and I believe Tama Tonga at Wrestle Kingdom 10 to establish those titles. And they held them until February 11th, where they lost them to the same team there at the New Beginning in Osaka, to establish this belt as kind of the hot potato title. And, don't look away because the title could change hands at any moment. They actually won them back 3 days later at the New Beginning in Nagata, and then lost them 6 days after that. So on February 20th to Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, the Elite, February 20th. And so again, they were a bunch of title changes pretty quickly in fun, fast-paced matches to establish the idea that these championships are hanging by perilous threads.
Was that one of the last times that the Bucks and the Briscoes would face off?
It's among the last times, yeah, because they really didn't work. Well, in Ring of Honor, they may have a few more times, but in Japan, certainly, because the Briscoes then ended up working more for New Japan later in the year. And at Dominion, June 19th, 2016, they defeated the Gorillas of Destiny at Osaka-jo Hall and won the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles. They kept them for a while, made a couple of defenses, mostly against Bullet Club, and lost them at the King of Pro Wrestling pay-per-view in Tokyo on October 10th, 2016, back to the Gorillas of Destiny. And that title match there, where they lost them back, that was really the last run on a New Japan show. They made a couple more where they were on those Global War events, where it was both Ring of Honor and New Japan. But that was their run in 2016, and involved establishing a brand new 6-man title. It involved a heavyweight tag team run, and then they were a featured part of those Global War combined shows whenever New Japan and Ring of Honor hooked up over the years. So a little bit of a thread there with the Briscoes and IWGP, and it's going to be a shame that we won't get to see them in the future. And of course, we wish Mark and Jay's family all the best going forward as they recover from this tragedy.
Yeah, I throughout all this, I never felt like I was the eminent qualified individual to speak of his career or his accomplishments. There are a lot of people that really were. It's clear that you have enough knowledge of his time in Japan to speak accurately of it. Mike Gilbert and JD Oliva of our Brace for Impact today, lovely tribute to him on their Brace for Impact Extra on the YouTube. So if you want to hear more about the personal impact of people who were deeply, deeply affected by the loss of Jay Briscoe on our network, that would be that would be an appropriate show to check out. But yeah, the absence of Jay Briscoe in this world as a result of the tragedy that happened, it's left a huge void for a lot of people, and I wish that everyone who has suffered the loss of this can find solace and peace that he had a very huge impact, mostly positive, on this world.
Says a lot that just about every major American promotion, including one he never worked for, WWE, paid tribute to him and called him one of the best tag teams of the era. It's absolutely true. So with that, it's sad to end on a sober note. Jeremy, is there anything else we want to mention before we fold up the tent for the week and look toward the future, or is there anything else you wanted to mention?
I think that's a pretty good note to end on. You can find me at Jared Finestone on Twitter. What about you?
At Steven Conway 88 on Twitter and ringsidereplay.com, my history website. And of course, make sure you check out Fight Game Media, both the YouTube feed and the podcast feed, everything else. We cover everything in combat sports, and check it out. You will be glad you did. It's impossible to cover everything. Fight Game Media can help you keep track of an ever-expanding world of pro wrestling, MMA, and boxing. So with that, we'll say goodbye for this week. I'm Steven Conway. He's Jeremy Finestone. We will talk more about some of the events, issues, and news surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling when we return next week. We'll see you then. Thanks again.